I know see my journey. Looking for my journey. I'm looking for my honey.
Good evening, listeners. How are you today? Welcome to another show of The Platform with Mama Sarah. I hope you've all had a wonderful week. I did, apart from the snow on Sunday, but that's to be expected for those of you in London anyway. So today we're going to have a conversation, a discussion really, about gender roles in the house, about how children are, what they are taught in the house, if girls are taught differently to the way boys are taught. For instance, girls tend to be taught how to cook, clean, be a good wife one day, to look after the home. But what are the men being taught? There are conversations going on talking about, some mothers spoil their sons, which is why when they eventually leave the house, they need, girls to cook for them. They rely on their women to cook for them, and if they don't, it's all takeout. So today we've got two people on the panel. The first person that we have is Mary, who is of Ghanaian descent, and we have Devon, who is of Nigerian descent. We're going to allow them to introduce themselves to you now. Mary.
Hello everyone, my name is Mary. As Sheila said, I'm of Ghanaian descent, and I find this a very interesting topic, so I'm looking forward to discussing and hearing Devon and Sheila's views.
And I'm Devon. I'm of Nigerian descent, and I'm loving this. I wasn't meant to be on this panel. It just came as a sort of a breakthrough, but the topic of discussion could not be more appropriate, I think.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Devon. We did have somebody else that was supposed to come in, but unfortunately she had a slight accident yesterday evening, so Devon was drafted in. So I appreciate you coming in at such a short notice, Devon. Thank you very much. Okay, so if I can come to you first, Mary. I mean, I threw this around a little bit to a few people, and I've got some opinions which I'm going to be reading out later. But yourself, you have two brothers and a sister. There's four of you that grew up in a house with your mum and dad. Do you feel like the way that the things that your mum taught you as far as the household, what to do, how to look after everybody, was it different to the way the boys were taught? I know you're the eldest, so quite often it does fall on you, the eldest, to look out for the younger ones. But do you think as you grew up, more domestic things fell on you than it did your brothers?
I would say that we were raised, it wasn't meant to be different, but they were always, this is what men do, this is what women do, and so, for example, in my house, my dad always used to do the ironing. So I always think of that as being something that a man does. But for the girls, it would be cleaning the kitchen, the bathroom, general household things. That would be for us to do, and cooking. The boys would do the hoovering, but for example, sending the boys to the market apparently is a taboo. You can't send them to the market to buy yam, for example. That's the girl's job. So there was an occasion where I was asked to go and buy. I used to always do the weekly shop at Dalston, and my mum, I couldn't make it that day, neither could my sister. And I said, why don't you ask one of the boys? And she was like, no, you can't send them. So I was like, well, I will be getting takeout on the way home then, because if they cannot buy it, then nobody should eat, But those things don't sit well with Ghanaians.
So did your mum tell you why boys couldn't do that?
No, she just said that it was, boys, it's just, it's not something that they should have to do. So
no explanation?
No, just, I couldn't put, they're boys, no, that's not a job for them. That's just, Wow. So that's the kind of difference. It's not, I don't think it's something that they consciously do, it's just a belief system. And so do you think that's something that's because that's how your mum would have been brought up? For instance, I know that your mum was brought up in Ghana mostly. Do you think that's something that is a learnt behaviour
that she's passing on, because you said she didn't give you a reason why.
No, yeah, I just think it's just a belief that she must have picked up from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think over time, as we've grown up and we challenge it, because I do think that gender roles are quite different in the UK compared to what they would be if you were raised in Africa. So I think as we're growing up, and you know, like me saying, right, I'm going to get takeout then, because if they can't buy it, I don't see why I should waste my time. That, you know, it challenges her, and when you can't give a good enough reason, I think over time her mindset changes, because I do notice that she thinks she's slightly more modern than, you know, maybe those members of her families that are still in Ghana. But overall, I think it's just a slightly slower process than it would be if she had been born here. I don't even think it would be an issue.
Okay. Daban, do you have an opinion on that?
It's not too dissimilar to Nigerians, really. Nigeria is a deeply divided country on so many levels. So you find that, you know, Northerners, for instance, have a much more conservative outlook on what women should do, particularly how girls should be raised. And from a very young age, they're being raised as homekeepers. So that's something that is consciously different within the Nigerian sort of in the Nigerian context. But then even when you look in deeper, actually everything is justified primarily through religion. So the Southerners, who are largely Christian, still have very strong biblical values, and how children are being raised in Nigerian homes literally draws a lot from either Islamic or Christian text. So, you know, the covering of the head, for even Christians, you know, like, you know, going to church, you know, wearing the hat and all of that. And although the formal education does not distinguish or discriminate in raising kids, home training, which is seen as, you know, the moral instruction, is equally as important, and I would say accounts for half of one's training. Obviously literacy is not at 100% in both countries, so most people drop out of primary school, secondary school. So what you learn at home is actually critical to your development, to your growth, and to your understanding of gender roles, largely. The concept of gender neutral parenting is completely alien. I don't know any Nigerian who does that.
I don't expect it to be completely gender neutral though, but just because I think even no matter how you try to be, it would creep in, you know, it's likely to creep in. But I do think that one of the things that I feel quite strongly about this topic is that you sort of get told as a girl when you're from a young age, you know, you need to cook and clean, you know, when you have your own home, how are you going to run it, blah blah blah. But then when you you know, the men, you know, you often get asked questions like, oh, you know, you're a nice girl or something, why are you not married? Yes. And then, oh, can't you find a nice Ghanaian guy? Somebody even said that to me today.
How about what is the problem?
Somebody even said that to me today. Can you not find a nice Ghanaian guy? My uncle from Ghana called me and was like, you know, why can't you find a nice Ghanaian guy? You know, surely in the whole of London there must be a nice Ghanaian. And I said, I'm not saying that there aren't any nice Ghanaian guys out there, but those of them that are, you know, serious and driven and motivated and all the rest of it, and have been raised, you know, to be motivated and to know that, you know, a woman is a partner and they're equal and stuff, they're so serious that they've already found someone. And then you sort of get left with these guys who their mums have pampered them, they're a bit do you know what I mean, they're just very sort of needy, for want of a better word. And when you're raised, especially, maybe it is partly because I'm the eldest, you know, you're raised to cook, clean, look after, you know, I've had to look after my siblings, you need to be in charge, you need to make decisions, and then you're faced with this guy that can't, you know, he can't decide for himself what, you know, what should he eat is the biggest dilemma of his life. Like, he can't cook, he can't sort himself out. You know, people wonder like, oh, what's going on? You girls nowadays, you're so picky. It's not that we're picky. You know, if you raised sons that were also are equals, or I don't want to say are equals because it's not that we're better, but that were the men that were of the standard that you've raised your girls to, then perhaps it would be easier for people to.
And I think it goes beyond that. I mean, first of all, this may just be great marketing for that guy who is your equal. But I think it goes beyond that. I think it's important to understand that, you know, women's validation does not come from marriage. And I think it should be equally distasteful if a man hasn't found a girl, you know. So it shouldn't just, you know, the pressure shouldn't just rest on women finding suitable partners.
That's true. It shouldn't, but unfortunately that is our society that we live in, and it's not actually just I find that's not just the African society. It is actually all around. So I've got I know you touched on Northerners, Devon. So I have a friend who I ran this discussion by prior, and he said, and I'll read it in his own words actually. He said he's Senegalese, and he's of the Fulani tribe.
Yes.
And he said, in my tribe, girls are raised to mind the household affairs, such as cooking and cleaning, and even caring for younger siblings. Boys, on the other hand, were not permitted to express certain emotions or vulnerability, as boys are raised to provide for their family from the early age we start to explore, while girls are not allowed to leave the house without letting our parents know their whereabouts, but boys were free to run around. Now, I don't think that's only in that tribe. I think that happens, even now, that happens here in England, and in Europe, in America. It happens with, you know, African parents. Me personally, I didn't really grow up with my siblings, but I had cousins in a house, and we grew up with my grandparents. And I remember that I never saw a guy in the kitchen. I never saw a guy in the kitchen. The only time maybe there was a guy that was needed is if someone needed to pound fufu or something. That was it, because that was a strong manly thing to do. But apart from that, you know, going to the market, there are no girls around. They're doing various things. It was always.
And do you know what's really bizarre about this?
Sorry, Devon, can I just stop you there for a moment?
Yes.
I'd like to also introduce our other panelist, Eunice, who also was drafted in very late. So again, I appreciate that you did come in at such short notice. Thank you, Eunice. And Eunice is also of Nigerian descent, so we've
oh no, it's
Mary,
it's a tiebreaker.
Yeah. So we just, you know, I spoke to you about what we're going to be discussing, and we've just started that off with, you know, basically what kind of experiences that all of us have, you know, with gender roles. So I'll come to you in just a moment. That's okay. Devon?
Yes, I just wanted to touch on, you know, we were talking about earlier on about the kitchen being, you know, coming from, I'm sure Eunice would share this view. I mean, whatever happens in any society, Nigerians, I always feel, take it to, you know, they just up the game, take it to another level, and you know, and that applies to great things in terms of how we are doing so well in industry, in music, in Nollywood and films, but also to the very negative things. And I think gender stereotyping actually is deeply rooted in Nigeria through conscious behavior and even instructional, like, you know, do not enter. And I remember when I was studying, you know, my mother was not exempt from this. You know, there were certain things that I was kind of drawn towards, and it was like, you don't do it. So, like, you know, I couldn't do home economics. Well, actually, I think I did do it partly, and then when she realized how good I was at doing it, it was decided that it'll be agricultural science. Like I was really going to hold a spade, you know, like, and that's the thing, even down to behaviors, even down to preference for colors. You know, I liked yellows, and, you know, I liked floral type colors, and that was like an absolute no-no. It had to be the navies. It had to be. It was almost like reconditioning and reprogramming you. One of the things I remember as part of my childhood was I really hated going to the barbers, and I literally used to cry through almost every session. And there are times when I would go full whack. My mum would decide how my hair should be cut, like something I really don't want. And in protest, because I know that I can't have my hair long, I'll just tell the barber to make me bald, because I know that would annoy her.
So how old were you at this time?
Oh, I mean, like literally right through my childhood, it was a problem. So when I came to London for boarding school, one of the first things I did was grow it out. You used to do my hair, Sheila, when I first started growing my hair.
I tried.
So yeah, and again, it goes back to the whole gender thing, and it's so puzzling because like Nigerian girls or Nigerian women will see my hair and go, wow. 1 minute there's like, wow, such great hair. The next minute is like, you shouldn't have it. But why? It's all about gender.
I don't. With that though, I'm not sure if it is a gender thing or if it's just for some reason certain people just really don't, especially with dreadlocks. Don't you find there's also? I think we have our gender beliefs, and then
that's research.
Have just stereotypes attached to literally everything.
I think that
so if you're a girl that goes out late, then you must be not. It doesn't matter that you might have been at your friend's house studying. It's like, why did you get home late? If you're a guy with long hair, that means something. It's like we like to attach. There's a stereotype attached to every single thing that. You could possibly think about. It's just like they can never take things at face value. There has to be some sort of, oh well, this must mean X, Y, Z.
Yeah, it's true.
No, but even things like sorry, Miss Polka Dots. Even things like, if a girl is doing really well in something, let's say aeronautical engineering. As much as she gets praised, there would always be the, oh, you cannot find a man. Like, oh, you don't want to be a pilot because you'll never be at home, you'll never keep a man.
Yeah, you can't keep home.
And no matter how good you are in something, if it is considered to be in direct opposition to what your gender should be,
which is submissive. Yeah, you can't have those high-ranking jobs because your partner, you won't attract a husband because you will be earning more than a husband. You'll be doing better than a husband, and that will hurt your husband's pride.
But more importantly, getting a husband supersedes all those achievements. It doesn't matter what it's not about getting those things. It doesn't matter anymore if you don't have a husband.
Eunice, so what do you have any like experiences of gender stereotyping in the home?
Yeah, definitely I do. For me, obviously, I'm the oldest of four, and there's 3 girls and 1 boy, and my brother is the last born. So basically, I did everything anyway. But that's because I'm the oldest, and it was always like, you need to learn to do this, or you need to learn to do that, or you should have this, or and that was always the thing, like, if you didn't have that, you're not going to do well in your household, or it had to always be about being a good wife or a good mother or something,
a good housekeeper,
or a good housekeeper or something, always about keeping the home and being busy in the kitchen and all this kind of stuff. So that was like drilled from a very young age, like anything at all that you were doing, it didn't even matter, like, oh, you're not cleaning your room, so you're not going to know how to like clean your house, and all of this kind of stuff. So it was always attributed to like stuff like that. But my brother came when I was a little bit older, so I was about 18 by the time I had a little brother, and that was like a new experience because now it's like a boy in the house. And I mean, his name is King. That is his name, like in my language. Like,
is he?
Yeah, it's like King of the house. So so you can imagine, like, that's like number one. But the fact that, like, I'm seeing now, even though I don't live at home, like, as he's growing up, it's not the same like upbringing that we had that he is now having. Like, he goes out and he doesn't really get like in trouble, and he's like he's not even like up to 15 yet, and he's like able to like go out with his friends, and it's just not a problem. Whereas with us, we had to have the biggest explanation ever as to why we were going here and there, and we had to like put it all, you know, like we had to plan out our whole like everything, like anything we were doing, we had to have like a proper strategic plan of how we were going to do it, because there would be a lot of questions, and do you know what I mean? And I feel like yeah, like my brother's never going to really experience that, because one, we've been through it anyway, and because, you know, he's the last born, but also because we're females and he's male, and it's just always going to be different, because he's not going to be like, I mean, he does do stuff in the kitchen, but that's just because it's him, and like he has to, because my mum and dad work and stuff like that. But if we were still in the house, like he wouldn't have to do anything, because things would already be done. Like even now my mum still like does stuff like to make sure that he's like extra comfortable, and you know, not that she didn't do it for us, but it's like he's the boy, so yeah, so more exactly, he's the king, so it's like more stuff needs to be done, like you know, like she'll rush home from work and stuff, like, oh, I don't want to leave your brother at home, like, whereas with us it'll be like, oh, anyway, you guys sort yourselves out, and you know, make sure you've done this, make sure you've done, and you know, like you just get things done. So I think there are gender roles, and I don't think it's ever going to change, because those of us that have grown up like in this generation, you can't unlearn something that you've learned like your whole life, and it's almost like even if you try not to be like that, there are other things that are going to show those traits that we all have because of the upbringing that we've had. Like there's some things you can't even get away from.
But I don't think that we should I don't think that we should have to unlearn anything, but I do think that if you like, the benefit of being familiar with two cultures is you can take the best of both, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So
absolutely,
why, you know, it's not that we should say, right, this is you know, completely awful, but I think, can we not just share, not even share it, but teach the boys the same things that you teach the girls, and don't shut the girls down for things. So for example, you know, I'm a bit of a no-nonsense person, like I just
a bit.
I'm quite impatient, you know, and if I reach my tolerant limit, I'll say, do you know what, listen, excuse me, whatever you're doing, it's not for me. And you know, people sometimes say to me, not so much now because, you know, I've had a few choice words for them, like, oh well, you know, you obviously feel like you know everything. So how are you gonna cope in your husband's house? You know, you can't speak to. But it's like, but if somebody is doing something wrong, they should be told. It shouldn't matter whether you're my husband, a pastor, a teacher, a doctor. Like, it's irrelevant. If you've done something and I don't like it, why should I have to hold it in? But you know, it's that idea of, oh no, you know, you should really get an elder to say that, and even when it's an elder, it should probably be a man. It's like, do you see what I mean? It's just those sorts of things. Like, I think it's good to sometimes get a panel together and talk an issue out, but I'm not going to teach my children that, you know, okay, you're female, so don't say what you think. That's a ridiculous thing.
I sit in the middle of these two arguments. A part of me agrees with Eunice in a sense that you know, this may never change, and I tell you why. In Nigeria last year, there was a gender equality bill that had been trashed out of the House for the 4th time. And what is really strange about it is that the people who were saying, let this not move forward, were just everyday people, like you and me, regular women included.
But then, are they educated, or are they
a broad cross section? Some were uneducated, some were educated, some were even public speakers who are like, oh, why do we want to be equal to men?
But does it matter whether or not, I mean, education is great, but in that sense, does it matter if you're educated or not? Because common sense is common sense.
Yeah, that is true.
There's people who, you know, have studied, had various degrees, and to be honest, if you put them outside, they couldn't hold a conversation that's got nothing to do with their degrees, basically. So when it comes to that, does it matter? Isn't it just a matter of common sense that
But you say that, but why would a woman argue against a gender equality bill? I mean, talk me through that process. I
understand that. That's what I'm saying, that you are a woman. You should know what's happening to other women around the world. I mean, even in your own village or your own city, your own country, you know what's going on, especially in Africa, in Nigeria. You know, you don't need to know books. You don't need to have been listening to the news and, you know, reading whatever newspapers. It's happening to you, and you know it's not right. Why would you not want that bill to go ahead?
I think, though, that any female that would argue against such a thing has a false notion in their mind that their position can be changed, or they become less of a woman the more they become equal to a man. But the thing is, have you ever heard that quote that no one is you and that's your power? Like, I'm female and a man is male. Like, that is my power. No matter how much we change the laws and we say, okay, a woman can be just as outspoken as a man or whatever, I'm never going to be, unless I go for an operation, I'm never going to be, do you know what I mean, a man. So the idea that I would argue against it is just a ridiculous, to me, it doesn't make any sense, because it's like, it's the same with this, and also diversity, do you know what I mean? Like, you just want to be given the same opportunity as the next person. It's not going to make me equal in the sense that, okay, now I think that I'm a man and so I'm going to go around getting into brawls in the club because I feel like, yeah, I'm macho. No, it's, I have the same opportunity to be heard. I have the same opportunity to you know, pursue my career without people asking me, you know, when am I getting married, and what is it, you seem like such a lovely girl, what is the matter with you?
What
you
is
know,
the problem?
you would never say that. That is exactly the question.
Isn't it?
And so I just feel like we just want the same opportunities, and if the people that are threatened by that, I mean,
sorry, can I stop you there? So we do want the same opportunities. I want the same opportunity as the next man. But on the other side, though, women also want to be treated like women. Mostly we want doors opened, want chairs pulled out.
You want the bills paid.
We want a bill paid. Do you know, all of that? So if we want that, are we picking and choosing when it's all right for us to have a gender role? I
would say sometimes.
You know, because I have this discussion with people, and they, you know, quite often they say, well, you women want equality. However, when it comes to certain things like, you know, we're going out on a date, you're expecting me to pay, you're expecting me to open the door. I mean, I think that's being a gentleman, as ladies will be ladies with other qualities. But, you know, with some women, I feel like we use the gender stereotypes to our advantage as and when we want. You know, so is that hurting the whole balance of things?
I just have a question for you. I don't disagree, but can it truly be said that men don't do the same things, especially in the African community, when they will say, oh, a man should be the head of the household? In fact, the whole, you know, as a woman, you can't give your opinion. Why? Because he's the man and he's in charge, so what he says goes. Is purely, you know, that's a gender stereotype. And, you know, I'm Christian. In the Bible it says, wives, obey your husbands. The very next line says husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and was willing to die for the church. You should, you know, but you never hear that. So I think that in the same way that women do that, men also do it.
But I feel like a lot of men with that, though, you're right, they do pick that first line and that's it. And as they say,
but the second line does not make a parallel. One is about love, the other is about subjugation. I mean, they're very different roles. You know, obedience versus love.
No, but then it is saying that the man, what it says about love.
Yeah, the man has to love the wife as well.
No, but I think it reinforces the whole concept of gender.
I was going to say, actually, the word is obey in some, but it's actually submit.
There you go.
well, I've read around it anyway, because obviously there's so many versions. But yeah, that whole situation is the reason why I said that I think that is something that can't, like, it's going to be this way all the time, because, or forever, you know, even after us and whatever, because it's innate. It's like it's part of people's culture, it's part of you know, lifestyle, it's part of all of these things. There are some roles that a man should play, and there are some roles that a woman should play, and we all understand those roles. Yeah, sometimes they do get a bit blurred, and sometimes they're over enforced, I think, as well, you know.
Do we I mean, submission, if we look at that for a minute, is it always taken in the wrong context because of the way people use it?
I think so.
Because when you hear submit, it's like, what? Who am I submitting to? But truly, if a man gives you a good enough reason that you're able to respect him enough, is submission a bad thing? Submitting to your husband as the head of the household, like, I would say, I'm not married, but in a relationship, I like to cook. I love cooking. I cook for you guys sometimes. I just generally, I love cooking.
You're an old woman.
I am an old woman. I'm not an
old woman.
Oh. But some women don't. So I love cooking anyway, so I don't mind doing that. But I bet you, if somebody says, go and do it, you have to do it. You're not going to catch me. I'm not going to do it. There'll be a strike. But generally, I want to do it. Because you... Sorry, go on, Mary.
I believe that that's why the next line, in terms of what you were saying about it not being, it's not a direct parallel, but I believe that that's why the next word says love. Because if you love someone, love, for me anyway, love means respecting them, honouring them, cherishing them, all the rest of it. If I love you as a friend, as a brother, as a sister, whatever person you are to me, even as just my neighbour, just there are certain things that I won't do to you out of respect. So I will not talk to you authoritatively because you are my equal.
Well, that's your interpretation. But if we isolate the words submit, obey versus love, they are two completely different forms of emotion. The other thing I want to quickly point out as well is that in terms of the gender roles, clearly, as I'm outnumbered on this panel, it would suggest that, you know, women are not being, or girls are not being raised as equal as boys, therefore boys have an advantage. Well, the trouble with gender stereotyping is, whilst I agree with that clearly, sometimes that advantage is not necessarily welcome. So me growing up in Lagos, I wanted a situation where I could freely make the choices that I wanted. So being banned from the kitchen was actually quite punishing to me. And what's ironic is most of the leading chefs are men. You know, so if I actually wanted to pursue a career in, let's say, in food or nutrition, well, I'm several years behind, because the passion that kind of came out of me in my childhood was crushed by my parents, who felt that I shouldn't have been doing that, and my sister, who ended up studying engineering, should have been the one in the kitchen. So they've just filtered us into very prescribed roles, which actually may have hampered our success, and you know.
Yeah,
definitely.
I would agree.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, actually, it's that what you've just said has reminded me of something. I remember going back to Nigeria with my mum a few years ago, and I was talking to my cousin, and we were having a conversation that was something like this, and she said, well, you know, Eunice, it doesn't really matter how much education you have, at the end of the day, you're still going to be in the kitchen. Like, it was, and you know, and my cousin is female as well, and it was just like, wow, it's almost like she just summed up like my whole life in just like one sentence. Like, doesn't matter like if you go uni, doesn't matter if you get this job or you make this amount, the point is, once you're married and you know you've got your children, you're going to be in the kitchen.
Oh, it doesn't even matter if you're not I mean, the not getting married is not even a concept that drops there.
Oh no, like, no. How dare you ever think that you are not going to, like, what are you doing with your life if you're not getting married? No, that one is not even, no one thinks about that part.
Exactly. And like, one of my friends actually raised something that I thought was really interesting. So my cohort of friends are now like starting to turn 30, and she was saying that you know, I'm gonna be 30 in a couple of months' time, and like, how did this happen? And then she said that one of the responses, because she put it on social media, and so one of the responses that she'd gotten from somebody was, oh well, at least you're married and you've got 2 children.
Wow.
And so she was like, well, should I be content then, because I'm married and I have 2 children, that the sum of my life goals is that I've achieved this thing, and so is there nothing more for me to look forward to in life, you know? And you know, she's a friend from university, so
is she Ghanaian as well?
No, she's Nigerian actually.
Oh
but
God,
it's
yeah.
like,
I mean, marriage is a status symbol, and
no, but the thing is, it's like, I think that's quite sad, because it's like, okay, for me, I'm not married, and I still have something to look for, and then when I have children, you know, when I get married, I'll look forward to having children, but once I've decided, okay, no more kids for me, is that the end of my life? I'm just waiting to die.
So you saying that's 30s, I'm past my mid-30s now. I'm not married, I don't have children, and a few months ago I travelled for a little bit, and so I was in America, and it was like 1 something in the morning, I think I've told you this, and this lady, who happens to be a friend of my mum's, like, you know, when you're growing up, the aunties and stuff, okay, but we don't really keep in touch, but she's on my Facebook, so hello auntie, Christmas, whatever, it's fine. So she called me, like, she must have seen me online, and she called me on Messenger. Now in London it would have been about 6 in the morning, if I remember correctly, or just getting up to 6. She said to me, oh mommy, I'm seeing all these pictures, oh, you really having fun, you've been gone for such a long time. I said, yeah auntie, I'm having a good time, like, this is, you know, I needed to do this at this point. Oh, but mommy, you know, at this point in your life, you know, you don't want to be wasting money doing all of that traveling. You want to, now is the time for you to settle down.
Did you get where she was going before she said that?
I knew. Immediately. I knew. When she said, oh mommy, I said no. So I was like, so I listened to her, I was boiling up actually. I listened to her, she said, oh, you know, save your money. I mean, your husband will bring the money, but you save the money, and then, but you also have to be in the country so a man can find you. A man is going to find me. Like, I've been living in London since I was 9 years old. Yeah, my husband hasn't. It's not the 3 months that I'm away from London. My husband, I have to run back so my husband can find me.
But also, can your husband also not travel to America? I mean, just the concept.
Are there no men in America? We're living in a digital age.
But I was shocked at first, and I was so annoyed. Somebody would say annoyed. I was annoyed. I was really annoyed. Like, you've actually woken up at this time of the morning to come and tell me, somebody, you don't call me. Like, you know, you can take advice from some people, and my mum's got these friends that I love them to bits. You know, one in particular, she can tell me anything. I would do, you know, when you've done something wrong and you know, but you don't want anyone to tell me. I've got certain aunties that will tell me, like, what you're doing is nonsense and quite system, don't do it, stop it. This woman, we don't have that relationship. We don't talk. So out of nowhere, you brought yourself, called me 6 hours behind you to tell me that, you know, I should bring myself back. No, what she said was a yeah, which means is enough. In Chi, that I'm using my money to pay for my plane ticket and do what I'm doing. This woman doesn't know where I live. She doesn't know what I do, but she felt like, you know, as an older lady who's known my mum, her and my mum aren't even friends like that anymore. You know, she actually, I was just like, so when she finished, I said, auntie, thank you very much. But I just need to know, like, what I really wanted to say to her was, which part of my trip did you pay for? You know, and why is it bothering you that, you know, I've travelled and I'm having fun instead of looking for a husband? Is that all I'm supposed to do in life? Don't get me wrong, I want to get married, I want to have children, but don't call me at 6 in London time and 1 o'clock in New York to tell me that.
The biggest problem was that you actually heard it out and without saying
no,
anything.
it took a lot. it took a lot for me because I don't want to be disrespectful.
Because
That's not how I was
part of
brought
the
up.
problem, though, is the fact that you will wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to
And do
call
this.
somebody
Yeah.
to
I
tell
think,
them
no,
this
I think
rubbish.
maybe she was going
Is
to
she
work.
also hotting up the guys in this same respect? Because I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it? They'll get on your back. Oh, you're not married. You're not married. But
you
you
are gonna
see
marry
a man
them.
my age, and it's like, oh, eligible bachelor. Well, that's why I'm not finding anybody, isn't it? Because
All these bachelors that fly out.
it's fine
And
for
then
them to be doing
they
that.
can
No. But also put pressure on them then. Like, it's just a one-sided
Yeah, it is
affair.
one-sided,
And so
it is.
you're telling me I should look for a husband.
Yeah,
and then, God forbid that you as a woman should also approach a man. Hey!
Oh, but
That's
can I
another
just
one.
say that
That's another
with
one.
this lady, actually, she has a daughter who's about a year older than me, who's not married, and who don't have children.
Oh, but she's probably dying a slow death, you know, daily. I mean, you don't think that she's immune from this.
she's not getting away.
She's not getting
You want to
away.
thank God that you're not
She's
that
not getting
woman's
away,
daughter.
yeah.
And
She's
I'm
not.
sorry, but if the lady should ever listen to this, we don't mean this rudely.
Oh, no, I
but
mean it.
just
It needs
please,
to go.
You know, people know what they need to be doing in their lives, and they've got their own expectations for themselves. Nobody needs an external
told,
person
yeah.
to tell them what it is that they should be doing in their life. Like, we're all adults. It's not helpful. And if you're an auntie out there that does it, please.
It
Hold
needs,
your tongue.
to
it's
stop.
Well, on a side note, though, we just Africans don't have no filter. Like, especially the older ones, like things just pour out.
Yeah,
I think I was told at 31 that if I don't hurry up and have children, that my eggs are drying up at 31. But that one, my mum dealt with it. She sorted it.
Well, I hope you've got a sprinkler.
Well, I was going to say, actually, it's funny that you should say that because I think it's not just in the African community.
Yeah.
I think it is in the black community as a whole.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because obviously I'm a hairdresser and I deal with people from all backgrounds in the black community. And I've heard this said many times, like, hurry up and get married, don't wait too long to have children, you don't want to be single forever, and like I said, I'm the oldest of 4, so my sister after me, she is married and she has a child, and that is like she's ticked all the boxes there. So it's almost like, oh, but your sister, your younger sister is married,
and you're not.
and you're still here, the same situation with that question, what is the problem?
Can we
What's
help
happening?
you?
Yeah, what, and all this, like,
Tell me,
oh,
I'm
yeah,
your
all
auntie.
this, yeah. and also, actually, it's not, like I said, it's not just like, like your African auntie or something like that. Like, it would be like, like people around you as well, like little hints and stuff like that. They could even be close in age to you as well. Same thing. So it's almost like, oh, sorry, what part of my life did I cut out for you to deal with or to get advice on, or to, because everybody has their own issues that they're dealing with, but for some reason I just feel like maybe people are just so like overly bothered with what other people are doing or how other people are living their lives, and if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't fit the kind of look that they're supposed to, this idea that we have all fixed, drilled into our heads or whatever, then obviously something isn't right there, or you're not doing something right, or you've missed the boat there, or you've done this or you've done that. It's just like,
I think
it's really refreshing. So I just want to quickly touch on a point, like because when you invited me, Polka Dots, onto your show, and I said, oh, are you sure, because I'm Nigerian, and you were like, oh yeah, it's fine, it's fine, it's not that different to Ghanaian. And then to hear now that actually it's a wider black issue, because I often thought that in, let's say, Afro-Caribbean societies, they tend to be a lot more liberal, certainly with marriage, because you can have kids and they don't have to come from a marital structure, and you can have kids that belong to different, you can have mixed parentage. So I never really thought the marriage was that important to.
Well, it's a
status thing, though, isn't it?
This is the funny thing. Maybe the marriage isn't even that important, but if you are the African person in that circle,
That's not marriage.
then it's important for you because they know
Yeah.
what the culture is like.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
I see. So now, because our culture, like, we've spread our
We've
prejudice
made it so
wide.
yeah, so now everybody can point a finger and say, "Oh, but you know, you're Nigerian, you're not married yet."
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's all of that as
So
well.
we're being judged by
So
our
it's
own
not
standards
just
by people that don't even have those standards.
Right.
I'm gonna just read another comment that a lady called Frances, she's Nigerian, she's got grown children already, so she said, I think, so I put to her the question of gender roles in the house and, you know, how's she raising her kids? Did she treat the boys differently to how she treated the girls? And so what she said was, I think it depends on the parents. For me, both boys and girls are taught how to be well behaved, to respect both young and old, help with the housework, both cleaning, cooking and every other thing. Yes, sometimes this community segregate the boys from the girls, but it's up to the parent to educate them that they are equal in the sights of people and the sights of God. But one thing I noticed growing up is that I had to go out with my cousins, you know, even to watch movies. I was not allowed to go out on my own, as you said, at night. But for the boys, they can go out on their own whenever they please. I saw that as a protection over the girls rather than the boys. I don't think you can teach a girl at an early age to be a good mother or a wife. Being a good mother or father is a personal thing. It does not matter if you're well brought up or well disciplined. This just comes up naturally once you know your responsibility as a mother or a father. There is no parental school to teach on how to be a good mother or father. When a child comes, you know immediately that you have a responsibility to take care of them. And this start first with loving the child. Once there is love to give, you will do anything in your power to create a healthy environment for your child and the whole family. You place your child first above all, boys and girls. The most important thing is to make God the third person in your home, to give direction and guidance, and also create a loving environment for both girls and boys to live in, because a tree does not make a forest. We all have to bring them up in godly manner and also teach them the fear of God, and to make God their foundation, and every other thing will follow that is good. And a child will behave, and later it will be their responsibility to become a good mother and father, and also somebody who's relevant to the community. But gender roles, it's us per household, it's how the children are brought up. So I mean, she makes a lot of sense there. Yeah. It's how you treat your children, because I have had lots of messages, and I know lots of friends, lots of my guy friends can cook. You know, there's a few of them that can cook way better than me, and I think I can cook. I know that I can cook, but there's a lot that can do that will clean up. So I used to date this guy, like, I have to say I didn't have to do anything, you know, and in the house there's three boys, and they all know how to cook, they know how to clean, they know how to look after their house.
I often find though, was it just three boys or did they have a sister? Because I often find that with those parents that God didn't bless them with both sexes, then you lot are going to get, there won't be gender, because do you know what, because then it's like, no, but we need these children to, you know, you lot can't be doing everything for you, so then there's not going to be any gender discrimination. But where they are blessed with, you know, females and males, then it can be, oh, okay, well, we'll get these ones to do this and we'll get those ones to do that.
And I think it's important to note as well that it's for children born in diaspora. So, you know, those who are back in Accra, Kumasi and whatever, they will have additional external help. So, you know, more than likely, so even if there's 7 boys, none of them will have any skills.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
the mother and the extended family will have to pick up all the slack, and they will just be, I mean, the classic case, you know, even when you have both sexes, you know, lots of parents will be like, oh, you know, the son follows the dad to the office, the daughter stays in the kitchen to help out mum.
Yeah,
it's classic.
When I was growing up, my dad actually didn't, I think from about the age of 8, he was like, oh, no daughter of mine is not going to be able, like, I won't have any daughter that cannot cook. So when everybody would go out to play, I had to sit and watch my mum like cooking and stuff. And actually now I don't particularly like to cook, because for me it's always been
by force.
And so I mean I can do it, but I mean it's just bringing up so many, I just don't even know what point to make next, but like I can do it, but it's not something that I love to do. And if ever, I don't know about you, but have you, like, you go on a date, sorry I don't know why I'm asking you, you go on a date,
Going on commercial soon.
okay, and you know, guys British born, so they're of African descent like me, and they feel like they can ask, okay, so
Can you cook?
so somebody asked me that, and I said to him, okay, so if my car breaks down,
Can you
I
fix
call
it?
you? I don't need AA subscription, but can you come, and whatever is wrong, can you? He was looking at my face, and I said, well, if you can't do that, I don't think you've got any business asking me whether I can cook, because in my mind that's what a man should do. So, you know, if you're saying, oh, I need to check what my future wife will be, then yeah.
On that note, we're going to go into adverts and pay some bills, and we'll be back. I'm going to throw a little spanner in the works for you guys, so we'll be back. Listeners, do come back to us in a few minutes.
He's off.
Are you on the thing now? Can we? We're not frozen, are we?
Just waiting for the commercials.
Girl.
Well, it looks like we're not going on commercial after all.
So we can chat some more.
Can they see us right now?
Yeah, we can see her.
Okay, yeah, we can carry on with our
Okay, throw in the
conversation.
So throw your
throw the spanner. We're all like.
So my spanner was there was a recorded message that I received. I wanted to play it so everybody could also hear, and I will try and play it actually. But basically, the question was: so us women expecting men to be able to do all of this, bring certain things to the table. You know, what are we doing? What are we women? I mean, Devin, I'm gonna freeze you out
Cut
for
me
just
out.
a moment, but you can add something. What are women, you know, taking, bringing to the play?
What do you mean? In what sense?
Hold on, let me just see if I can.
Is it a long message?
No, it's not a very long message actually.
It's at least 4 minutes.
Behave yourselves. Behave yourselves. So, I don't know if I can get this on the mic.
Where I'm thinking completely different. So in Ghana, the onus is on the men to work hard, pay the bills. Most of the men know how to cook, clean, do the gardening, as I'm doing now. And the question I want to ask is on the reverse. It's like, what are women being taught as young women when they're growing up in the African environment or the Caribbean environment, the Indian, do you know what I mean, the ethnic minority backgrounds? Are they being told they have to be supportive? Are they being told that they have to work hard and be ambitious and not rely on men? Because how I look at it so far, when we go out to buy drinks, like a white lady will be quick to support, and this is generalizing, some, not all, will be quick to support and help you buy a drink, whereas a black African will be expectant without asking. I went out the other day and my missus's friends were like out, and she was like, oh, can you buy them bottles? I'm thinking, why am I buying them bottles? They're not my women. I'll buy you a bottle because you're my woman, I'll look after you, but why am I buying bottles? But it's all for image. So it's like, what are the roles and what are the gender roles? And where we're moving into like an environment where there's equality. So where is the balance? Who does what? And speaking to a man who knows how to cook, who loves to cook, and I cook majority of the time for my woman, it's like I enjoy doing that. But as well as doing that, I still go to work, I earn a bill, I pay her bills. So what is the purpose of the woman apart from being there and being pampered? So it's interesting. It goes both ways, but I could speak forever.
Okay, So did you guys hear any of that?
Yes, we did.
What do you have anything to say about that?
Eunice, I'll let you go first.
I do. So, in an African household in Britain, yeah, because this is where we live, so we're going to talk about that. In an African household in Britain, a woman will go to work. She probably has a good education, because we're all hammered that we must read and get a good education. So most of us have university degrees or are taught to that level. Yeah. Just like you said, very few of us are even allowed to do what we want to do. We must do something that our parents have decided that they want us to do. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two is we'll go out and get that job, or have that job, or start that business, do that business, run that business. But we still have to play that wife role, that mother role. So we come home, look after the husband, make sure that there's food, make sure the house is clean, and then if there are children are involved as well. Now, when I was growing up, because I grew up here, my dad would work and my mum worked as well. But my mum made sure that food was ready, yeah, so that when we went to school, so my dad would sort out breakfast in the morning, but my mum would have woken up.
Unusual.
Yeah, right? That is. Your dad is a modern man.
Yeah, my dad is a modern man. But my mum would have woken up early, like around 5, yeah, cooked before getting ready for work, to go to work, yeah. He'll get us ready, my dad would get us ready, we'd go to school, we'd come back, there would be food, because my mum has cooked the food before she went to work. Do you understand? Yeah. Then she will now come back, and then her and my dad would eat, or whatever, you know, was the situation. And this is how I grew up, and it's even still the same like that, even now. Yeah, my mum and dad are, you know, grown folk now, so this is something that they've been doing their whole life. This is how they've worked it out. Now, those of us that have grown up in this generation that we're in now, with this big degree and maybe the big job and all of that kind of stuff, yeah, are gonna do that 9 to 5. Me, for example, I run my own business, so my business is not 9 to 5. My business works on hours that, you know, might be extended past the 9 to 5 set of hours, or even, you know, maybe a later start but then a later finish, things like that. So basically, I'm gonna have to have food ready before I go to work. Go to work, I stand to work because I'm a hairdresser, then come back, sort out food for my husband, or make sure that he's eaten or whatever, plus other activities that adults do, plus maybe children, if there's children involved as well. What are we bringing to the table? Everything. We are bringing everything to the table. That is what we are bringing. Everything. And actually, it doesn't just stop there, because if you take out being married and being, you know, having children or anything like that, a woman is doing the same thing a man is doing. A single woman is not just not doing anything. A single woman, not like, I'm talking about a single woman that is working, is educated, or even if you're not educated, you're working, you have your own business or whatever, you are using your hours in a day to make yourself, build yourself, so that when that man does come along, you've already got something, you've got your foundation that you've made for yourself. That is what a woman is bringing to the table, you know?
Just to add to that, I think that there are, I'm not going to deny that there are women out there that, you know, they go on a date and they might, you know, they won't pull out their purse, but do you know what, I don't think that just because you go on a date with somebody and she doesn't offer to, you know, she's not like reaching for her purse the minute that they bring the bill, that doesn't say that she's not going to be supportive. I think if you've been out with the person 3-4 times and not once has she even offered to buy, you know, anything, so she hasn't offered to buy you like a Coke or however, do you know what I mean, then maybe that's a problem there. But then what I would say is that I think that there are a lot of men out there that they're not looking for, I don't know what it is that they want, because in that voice note I think the person said, oh, it's all about image, so he used an example of somebody wanting to be bought bottles because of image. I think that there's an issue of men wanting They don't know what's good for them, so they want a girl that looks like Kim Kardashian. Do you know what I mean? Just supermodel body, but she trades off that. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas some people like me and you know, we will go to work and we make a living that way. She goes to the gym every day, and she, you know, I've got some controversial views, and one of them is that people like to slag off gold diggers, and I'm not saying that I don't want to, you know, let's all take our hats off to them, but they invest in themselves. You know, she might get her boobs done, her bum done, she goes to the gym every day, she doesn't eat, you know, you won't catch her eating chips and burger like me, you know, she's going to eat salad all the time, she's going to make sure that she's wearing this season's clothes, her shoes, her hair, everything is on point. That is an investment. If that's the woman that you want, because you think that that's good for you, and then you want to stand somewhere and be like, oh, what are women bringing to the table because I'm bringing this? I'm sorry, but you cut your coat according to your size. Do you see what I mean? So you went in for that because you thought that that was what would fit you. So you can't now complain about it. And I think that some men have unrealistic expectations. They want a woman that is done up to the nines all the time, but then they also want her to be working, having children, and going back to being size 6 2 weeks after she's given birth. Do you know what I mean? It's like, as a woman, another gender stereotype is like the way that you look, isn't it? I don't believe that this man has come across these women going in for the substance of what's in their hearts. You know, I'm betting you he's dating some supermodel looking chicks, and you know, that's the, you know, he needs to pull his wallet out.
know, but Devin, do you have a view?
From what he said, he's saying that he does all the cooking for his wife, and he does all the gardening, and he does everything like that. Well, I think that's really great. And if his wife decides not to lift a finger, I mean, that needs to be a one-to-one conversation. I don't really think that it needs to sweep lots of women who do lots of things daily. I know many single parents. I know many single parents, you know, women who are single parents, and they are single really in the truest sense of the word. There is no man around, and they're championing their lives on a daily basis and improving the lives of their children. When men are single parents, more than likely there's some chick who comes in to guest as the mother of the kids, or as somebody he's kicking it with. The only difference is he hasn't made it official, but she's already in secondment, you know. And I feel like
secondment, good word.
And I feel like, you know, it's very easy to criticize. It's the whole thing about equality. It's the equality argument, isn't it? I mean, this applies to blacks when we're looking at, you know, white culture. This applies to the LGBT community. This applies to disabled people. When you marginalize people and prescribe a very set bank of norms and values and things to against, you know, the ideal, you know, single white male, or in our case, you know, black male, hardworking, doing all the rest of it, then, you know, you kind of just raise the lever each time. And I agree with you, you know, wags are wags for a reason.
Yeah, they've invested in themselves, and don't sit there and be like,
that is the subculture of all of it. But you can't, you know, and I think women in our community are very strong, and I think despite the challenges and despite the limitations that some people have grown up with, you know, it's quite remarkable what they've been able to achieve and what they still do every day. But I'm all for gender neutral parenting, so hope we get to talk about that at some point. I want to see boys in tutus.
Oh God.
I don't feel like, as you guys even admitted yourselves, that you feel like this whole gender sort of stereotyping thing is never going to change. I feel like boys in tutus is just
no, but I mean, that was like
I know that's like an extreme example.
Actually, it's not that extreme. I just feel it's comical. But
yeah, tongue in cheek is the better expression.
Yeah.
But I do feel that me personally, I don't want to believe that these things are never going to change, because I think that if you have that mentality of like a defeatist attitude, just look, I mean, we could all still be slaves if everyone had gone, oh well, you know, this is the way that it's been, and you know, black people, they don't know anything, they shouldn't be able to read. So I personally, I don't like those kinds of views of, no, this thing is never going to change, just because I'm probably just a bit of a dreamer, and I would like to believe that when my children, should I ever meet someone and have them,
when there's nothing wrong with you anymore,
exactly, when I'm healed,
then
deliverance.
that they will grow up and they won't have people coming up to them and saying random things. And another thing that, like, a gender stereotype that we haven't spoken about, I feel like this is maybe a more universal one than just in African homes, but I touched on it earlier, like the way that you look. Like, have you ever had it, like, if you put on a bit of weight, I don't know if it's just in my family, people will be like, hey, you're really one of my neighbours, yeah. She, no, can we just stop and talk about this? One of my neighbours, like, actually, I'm entering my house, yeah, and you're in your car, this woman slammed the brakes. Are you pregnant? Because I put on a bit of weight. Wow. Like, just
Oh yeah, that makes you feel great.
Look, she's Ghanaian. And then there's another lady that stands outside, like, you know, when I come out of my house I can see her door, and she saw me from down there and she was like, hey. That is actually what she did. She signalled that. So when I got there, she was like, hey, you're really putting on. You're really putting on. Yeah. So no, seriously.
You must have been a rake earlier.
I don't know, but can we just talk about this? So, like, already I know I'm old. I haven't got a husband. Yeah, I still live at home with my mum as well.
You got a fabulous law degree. Does that not count?
No, yeah, but
I have one.
Yeah, she's got one as well.
I have one. So it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You can have as many.
Yeah, there's still something wrong with you. And if you make the mistake of putting on weight, you just want to kill yourself.
Well, I never put on weight, right? I've always been small, right? But then they say, oh, is everything okay? Is it because you're not finding anyone? That's why
You can't win with the weight issue, though.
You're looking very small nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, so please, are you eating? I'm eating. Why are you asking if I'm eating or not?
And are you going to
if I now have a husband, does that mean I will be eating better?
Yeah.
Is that what it is now? Is, you know?
Do you ever, when you put on weight, though, do you ever get, hey, which man is looking after you?
Classic. That is a good one.
Introduce someone in your life.
You could never be looking good. Or like, who are you looking for?
That is a good
You
one.
have too much eyelash on or something.
And my sister always, she's like, I'm doing it for the Lord. She thinks I'm doing it for the Lord. Leave me alone.
Oh,
That's brilliant.
That's
That's actually brilliant.
Alright, I'm going to read out another comment from a gentleman called Fritz. He's Ghanaian. He's got children. And again, with him I discussed, you know, the gender roles in the house. Was he taught to cook and clean stuff? And so his reply was, reflecting on my childhood, I wasn't taught how to cook or to be a good husband. My father's behaviour shaped my straightness. The boys in the UK have lost the essential part of family time, be it with married parents or not. They're highly influenced and groomed by social media and the types of songs that they listen to. We depend on core and extended families. Music didn't shape our behaviour. To guide our boys in the right direction, parents need to encourage them about essence of family time and the positive values of the communities they should relate to. Boys and girls should also be diverse and less influenced by the media and what they listen to. So, does media have any influence on gender stereotypes? We were talking about you know, the Kim Kardashian types, of course. Instagram, as soon as you open it up, they're there, they're on the TV. I mean, you know, the family, when you think about, like you said, Mary, you're not gonna, you know, shut down their hustle, because you all know how the Kardashians kind of came to light. You know, they branded themselves. It was something that could have actually gone left, and it's actually gone right for them. So you know, he's saying here that music and social media are shaping young guys now. There's a lot of truth in it, because that everything that we do, all of us, we check our social media when we wake up during the day, what's going on, etc. And a lot of the things that's been portrayed on social media is, I've got a fine girl on my hand, she's not doing much, she's got a, you know, fat bum, big boobs, you know, she looks good on my arms, I'm buying her this, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are those who are building their empires, but generally the younger guys in the community, that's what they're seeing, and the young ladies, that's what they're seeing. Our young people, like, I sometimes hear some conversations, you know, when I'm on public transport, and I'm like, are you for real? Did we have this mentality, you know, when we were younger? I was, what did I watch the other day? So, you know, people go around and they have a microphone and they ask, you know, what kind of person are you into, and all of these. And this is going slightly off subject, but I have to bring it in. So these young boys and girls, they all looked maybe between the ages of 14 to maybe 17, no older. Black kids, you know, darker than me, darker than us in here. We're saying, oh, what's your type? What's your type of girl? Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, and they all say...
what kind of girls do you like? A lot of the answers were lighties, innit? Don't want no black attack, I don't want no black girl. They were black, and I guarantee you that their mums and dads are black, their sisters are dark, and they're black. But they said, yeah, one that looks Oriental or Latino, or mixed race, innit? Light
hair. Everyone said, light skin with curly hair.
Even the girls were like, I don't want no black boy. It can't be black.
No, but I really enjoyed that part, because what I will say is that in that video, it's just very silly. The boy, so it was a guy with the mic in Stratford. I felt like there were no serious people in Stratford actually after watching that video.
Sounds like Westfield.
Yeah, and so he goes round and he asks them, you know, what's your type? And all the boys say light skin with curly hair, and to each their own. You know, that type of girl is pretty, but it's not to say that, you know, someone of a different shade isn't either. But then the guy who's actually conducting these interviews is also black, and then he asks a girl, and she says, oh no, me light skin, I've got no time for dark. And he's like, but what about the dark skin guys? And he suddenly looks offended, and it's like, but why do you feel that it's okay to say it was kind
okay
of like
when the boys were saying it?
But I think that's because, you're right, they do take a lot of influence from social media, and it's kind of like I guess if she is just there to be an object on your arm and something that looks good, then, you know, it's no different from going into the shop and being like, oh, should I get the blue sweater or should I get the pink one? Like, you just, do you know what I mean? It's to make you look good, so it doesn't matter about the fact that actually it's a human being that you're talking about. It's like, oh, you'll do, you know, you fit the bill. But I think that, coming back to the gender stereotyping point, social media does have a big part to play in it. But what I've always thought is that if this was going to change at all, I don't want to say we don't need equality, but I don't think equality will look like we're ever going to be the same as men. That's not my goal. I just want the same opportunities. But everybody needs to raise their daughters with ambition, and everybody needs to raise their sons with respect. Because if she is ambitious enough, she's not going to subscribe to, oh well, he wants a light skinned girl with curly hair, and I'm light skinned and I've got curly hair, so, you know, got it made. Like, you know, I don't need to do anything else. This is, I can just be here, and that's enough. And then if he's taught to respect, he will also not objectify her and be like, you know, you're a bit fat, or you're dark, or you're too light, or whatever. He won't say that, because he will have respect for the things that she's achieved through her ambition. She will also admire the fact that he respects her and treats her like his equal.
Well, I mean, we strayed off the topic of discussion slightly, but I think social media is evil in many respects. However, I do disagree with that reader who made that comment about, oh, family time, because I think what family time is only going to do is reinforce stereotypes. At least social media balances that.
Why would family time?
Because his argument about, you know, children are now learning, getting their education about gender roles through music and through social media. Well, actually, if it's about gender roles, and if we're still sticking on the subject, then that's a good thing, because accessing social media and accessing music balances the books. You know.
Wait, hold on. So music. Let's take rap music. Let's take hip hop and videos. Do you ever watch the videos? Any of the videos? Any of the? When do you ever see a half-naked guy twerking?
Okay, so there is an artist whose name I cannot remember who had a video. It's like I love all the boys or something. I think it might be Charlie XCX, and she did a video where she had bought, like, basically in the video I think there's 80 men. There's, other than her in it, she's sort of like the star of it, going around, the only female, and there's men, you know, like dipping their fingers in whipped cream and licking it and like doing house chores and stuff. And you know, it was a big topic of discussion because she didn't have a single girl, and they were wearing skimpy shorts and thongs and things, just to make the point that, you know, because people watched it and they were like, gosh, those men look ridiculous. And it's like, but this is exactly what a woman would do in a video, and nobody would say that it was ridiculous. And I do get Devon's point that he's trying to make, in that if you're spending time with your family, so that the reader that you read out, he said that he didn't learn his values, he wasn't taught, but he watched his dad. That's wonderful for him, but only because your dad was a good role model. See, if your dad was a philanderer or you know, just wasn't there full stop, then that just family time would be irrelevant to the sort of person that you're going to grow up to be, because you wouldn't have had that role model. Do you see what I mean? And I think that social media, take your point as well, that it can be good because it opens up an avenue, like it shows a different perspective, but only if you're looking for it. So if you're open-minded, then you will explore. Like, I like lots of different types of music. I find everything, I will always want to learn more about everything. So for me, you know, I'm quite happy to look at something and just listen to it and think, oh, that's rubbish or that's not. But if I only like watching videos of, I don't know, Kim Kardashian or unboxing videos, I'm never going to come across those different things that could challenge my perspective.
No, I get it, but like Polka Dots mentioned, what about rap videos? And yes, what about them? Because if you look at Lil Kim's videos, if you look at Nicki Minaj's videos, they don't look like victims. They don't look like, they are very much in control of their destiny, even though they may be half naked. And that is the thing about balancing the books. And I think that social media does that. Social media is one space where you don't feel inequality. I don't see gender inequality in social media. It's an alien concept in that space. It's got lots of bad things. There's racial inequality. There's prejudice of all types. But I think the gender is, you know, it's even. It's fairly even. I've not seen it, because it would be odd not to. Like, you couldn't see that. Another quick point I want to touch on very quickly is that as far back, as regressed as we think we are in terms of catching up with gender equality, our communities, you've got to say, in Saudi Arabia, women can't even drive. You know, they can't even go to the doctor without a male companion. They can't access health services. They can't. I think the last vote was just very recently. And lots of countries in the Gulf, you know, share that pain. You know, very similar strands of women's development in those territories.
But a lot of women living in that country don't see it as, like, a lot of Muslim women, you know, people say, you know, they're oppressed, they're not allowed to do this and that. And actually, when you speak to quite a lot of Muslim women who, you know, are covered head to toe, and, you know, us here were saying, oh, why are you doing that? Is it because of men or whatever? They actually, I wouldn't say they've conformed to it, but they, or just understand, but they are happy with it.
But that's a mode of dress. But it's what Mary said earlier on about, but it's also having the same opportunities. I think it's a very different argument. You know?
Yeah, but then they don't have the same opportunities. They can't drive.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think that's his point, that we're not as backwards as we think. So we're talking about, oh, you know, our culture isn't progressing, or like, is it ever going to get in line with the rest of the world? But there are people who are worse off than us. But also, I do feel that that's a dangerous, just because just because somebody's bad, do you know what I mean? Like, I really don't like that in life, when people will be like, oh, this person's worse than me. Yeah, that's great, but you could still do better. So do you see what I mean?
No, but what I'm saying is that, you know, the benchmarks of looking at progression, you know, can, I suppose, you know, the standard is the West, isn't it? It's how everybody measures everything. But, you know, you could also flip it on the other side and look at it and say, well, actually, you know, lots of African women have, I mean, Liberia, Ellen Johnson, you know, female president, you know, there are some great moments of, you know, gender celebration in our communities as well.
One thing that I just, as you raised that point, came into my head that I've always thought was really intriguing about, I'm going to say Ghanaian culture just because I really don't know what it's like in Nigeria, is that actually some tribes in Ghana have maternal inheritance.
Oh yeah,
and I do know that it's because it's easier to, you know, before DNA and stuff, it was you'd know that the woman, you know, the child, if she gave birth to it, that it was hers and blah blah blah. But I do find that's quite intriguing, and we've long been able to have queens and stuff, you know, so you have the queen mother and she's really revered, you know, and stuff. So I find it really intriguing that as much as we will celebrate women, like they're still kind of not allowed to do certain things. And I do wonder whether it doesn't actually come from a negative place, but whether it's kind of, oh, we think that the women are so precious. Like, sometimes I wonder about that I don't necessarily agree with it, but I find it an intriguing concept that, you know, like, oh, things go through your maternally, you know, and we will, and even if you look at when in some cultures when you have daughters, that's like, you know, you don't want them because it's going to cost you money to give, whereas with our culture, you know, you have 5 daughters, you're raking it in because, you know, he's going to have to come in. And so I'd find it, because they view a woman as, you know, like, well, this is our precious thing and you need to come in. So it's an intriguing, like,
I think religion also plays a huge part. The fact that a woman can't get married unless she's actually given away by a man. I mean, these are really ugly stereotypes which, you know, should and ought to be challenged. Polka dots.
So I've got another message that's just come in from Beverly, who lives in Monks Park. So she says, I think boys and girls are raised different in the African community, and when they're older, they then make their own decisions, sometimes with the disapproval of their parents. The views aren't necessarily different from white communities who also fundamentally hold traditional views, but perhaps is not as emphasized as much in African communities, and there is an acceptance that ultimately their child will decide for themselves. I think there's nothing wrong in passing on aspects of how you were brought up, but you need to not be one rule one way, but it changes in a different situation. For example, you know your son's wife has gone away, say for work, and he's left to look after the house, and you visit and there's a tip and you're angry, yet you cleaned up after him his whole life. I think you should teach your children all aspects of life skills. Who knows, they might end up single for the rest of their lives. God forbid. And then, so she also said, also a stupid expectation my dad has is that my husband will beat me. His favourite line is, be nice to your brothers as they will come to rescue you when your husband beats you. Can you imagine? I believe it's a reflection of him. He's never raised my brothers to do that though, but it's been witnessed, so your kids could go the opposite way or think that's acceptable. Thank God my brothers don't find this acceptable. That's interesting. So be nice to your brothers, look after them, so one day when your husband raised by another woman who probably didn't say to him, you know, look after your wife, do the housework with your wife, when he's ready to beat, your brothers will come and I think it's all tongue-in-cheek with that one actually, but it is, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to take that one.
I think it signals a dark reality because also in lots of communities, I'm not sure about Ghana, but there's also a proverb in sort of Nigeria, you would know that. So be nice to your brother-in-law because when your husband dies, he can take you on. I mean, it's, you know, it's not that far removed as well.
Yeah, and that is something that they do in Ghana, you know, like when my dad died, they named, thankfully they don't have to marry your mum. Well, I don't know whether they used to do it back in the day, but it's like they appoint a new father for you, as if to say someone can be like, hi guys, I'm your new,
yeah,
you know,
they try to do that in my, they do that in my culture as well.
Yeah, so then it's like, you know, if I were to get married or anything, this person would now be
father figure.
Yeah.
Father.
But why is your mum not enough? Why is it not? She couldn't possibly have. And actually, the joke of the whole thing was that my mum and my dad weren't even together. So, and he wasn't with my mum for a very long time. So, you know, I don't know whatever danger it was that they're trying to preserve us from by appointing this new dad. When my dad left, you should have appointed that person then, shouldn't you? Because do you see what I mean? You've got this woman who's raised 4 children by herself, and then it's like, oh no, he's not here anymore, you couldn't possibly do it by yourself, let's appoint someone that doesn't even live in the same country as you to, you know.
So Eunice, before you were talking about after I played the audio from Kofi, you said, you know, women go out and we work just as hard and we come home and we're still expected to look after the house and the children, etc. So, and I've had this debate with various people. Now, when back in the days, in our grandmother's time, probably our parents too, Mary, you know, I think one of you touched on that the men went out to work and the women stayed at home. And that's another job in its own. You know, when people are on maternity leave, like, oh, you've got time off. Actually, it's a whole job, it's a lot of work. But now there are so many guys who actually still have that mentality that you know, women have to come back home and they have to clean and everything, but they forget that the reason why women did that in the olden days was because they didn't have to go out to work. These men were going out to, they were the breadwinners and they were coming home with the food, but women are still expected to do exactly the same thing. How, I don't know if we're ever gonna, there's going to be that sort of equality where men will come home in most households, 90% of the households, and they come home and they're cleaning, or you know, they don't come home and just put their feet up. And don't get me wrong, a lot of homes are